less surface area, which means less gas exchange. So even though you can still inhale just fine, you're not getting the oxygen out of the air as easily. Fourth thing is lung cancer. About 20% of smokers will develop it. Okay. That sounds like, oh good, I'm not guaranteed to get lung cancer if I smoke, but it makes your chances 1 in 5, which is pretty nasty. Out of all lung cancer cases, 80% are smokers. The others would be things like chemical exposure like asbestos or pollutants, or just plain bad luck where you're more susceptible to cancer. All right. Questions on smoking and the respiratory system? So that takes us to ventilation, the process of breathing, how it works. Breathing in is called inspiration. Breathing out is called expiration. Spire is air. A respiratory cycle is one of each, so breathe in, then breathe out. What actually makes the air move is changes in pressure. Boyle's law is something in physics that tells us about the relationship between pressure and volume of a gas. So, solids and liquids, they have a consistent volume. They're not going to expand or contract, maybe a little bit with change in temperature, but nowhere near the way a gas would. A gas will expand to fill up the space it has available to it. For a given mass of gas, so say a pound of air, the smaller the space you squeeze it into, the more pressure it's going to exert on the walls of its container. That's called inversely proportional. We saw directly proportional with a lot of things in blood pressure, where if one goes up, the other one goes up. Inversely proportional is if one increases, the other decreases. If you give the gas more space, then it won't exert as much pressure. So higher volume, lower pressure. Think about when you blow up a balloon, if you then try to squeeze it, it gets more solid, it gets harder as there's more pressure from the gas. Does this make sense? Questions on Boyle's law?
What was it called? What was it called whenever it...
Oh, inversely proportional. It's if you increase one, the other will decrease. So the way we're going to make the air move is by changing the volume of our lungs. Inspiratory muscles are skeletal muscles that contract to enlarge the thoracic cavity. Main one's the diaphragm, which pulls down. It's kind of a dome shape. So when it contracts, it pulls shorter, which pulls it flatter. And that pulls down on the lungs. The other major ones are called external intercostal muscles. These are found between the ribs. That's what intercostal means. They lift the ribs, which also pulls them out. And that expands your thoracic cavity around, while the diaphragm expands it downward. If you need to take a larger inhalation, there are also some accessory inspiratory muscles, which provide some more force to move the ribs. So, first thing that happens for inspiration is the inspiratory muscles contract. That causes the thoracic cavity to expand. Now, none of these muscles is pulling directly on the lungs because they have the parietal pleura up against them. But the parietal pleura is stuck to the visceral pleura with that pleural fluid in between. And if you're familiar with surface tension of water, like if you've ever put away wet glasses and then they stick together, or wet microscope slides or anything like that, it's hard to pull them apart. They'll slide against each other easily enough, but to actually yank them out is hard to do because of the water. And that makes the lungs, which are stuck to the visceral pleura, stick to the parietal pleura, which is stuck to the muscles. Compliance is the term for how easily the lungs stretch. If it takes more effort to stretch them, that's lower compliance. So, by expanding the thoracic cavity, we expand or increase lung volume. When you increase the volume, you decrease the pressure. That makes the pressure lower than atmospheric pressure, the pressure around you, so the air moves in. So you're not pulling the air, you're pulling your lungs, and that causes decreased pressure, which moves the air. Anyone remember Monsters vs. Aliens when the little blue guy Bob says he forgot how to breathe? Dr. Cockroach says, suck in, but that's not really how you do it. It's stretch your lungs. So this illustrates relaxed size, and then here's expansion. The diaphragm pulls down, external intercostals pull outward, and all these little arrows are directions of lung expansion. Now, atmospheric pressure is typically 760 millimeters of mercury, so that's the force of the air all around us. I'm not going to ask you to remember that number. I'm just pointing it out here for comparison. The intraalveolar pressure, so the pressure in the lungs, when we expand them, it only drops by about 2 millimeters of mercury, but that's enough to make the air move in. And that's with a relaxed breath. If you take a deeper breath, you make a bigger change in volume and therefore a bigger change in pressure, and more air will move. Then this illustrates the muscle actions. Here's the external intercostals pulling the ribs up. Kind of shadowed in here is the diaphragm pulling down. Then this illustrates some of the accessory muscles that pull up on the ribs or even the clavicle and sternum, which, the ribs are attached to the sternum. So you pull it up, you're going to pull the ribs as well. Questions on inspiration? So we talked about the surface tension in the pleura to make the lungs expand with the thoracic cavity. In the alveoli, we've moistened the air getting it down there. That water could create surface tension and make the alveolar walls stick together. We don't want that to happen because then it'll be harder to expand the lungs. So our lungs produce something called surfactant. It's a lipoprotein, so lipid and protein together, that breaks up the surface tension of the water. And that prevents the alveolar walls from sticking shut. Surfactant is one of the last things to develop before birth, so it's a major problem in premature babies if they don't have enough, so it takes more effort to expand the lungs. Think of trying to blow up a wet balloon. It takes a lot more work. Expiration. So here, we're going to decrease lung volume, which will increase pressure and push the air out. Taking it step by step, you relax your inspiratory muscles. You don't have to contract any muscles to shrink your lungs. They have what's called elastic recoil. The connective tissues of the lungs include a lot of elastic fibers. You're stretching them when you pull on the thoracic cavity. When you stop pulling, they just shrink back to their own size like rubber bands. That causes the lung volume to decrease, the pressure to increase. Now it's above atmospheric pressure, so the air moves out. Now, if you needed to push the air out more quickly with more force or get more of the air out, that's called a forced expiration. And you do have muscles to assist that. There's internal intercostals that oppose the external intercostals, and they pull the ribs down. And the abdominal wall muscles can contract, which compresses the abdominal organs, pushes them upward against the diaphragm, and makes the diaphragm go up faster or even further than it would just by relaxing. So, no muscles required for a relaxed expiration, but we have some for a more forceful expiration. This illustrates expiration, the lungs contracting in from elastic recoil, the abdominal organs pressing up on the diaphragm, and these are the internal intercostal muscles. Now, this was the best video I could find, taking us through inspiration and expiration step by step. The accent's kind of awful. It's like that really snooty kind of British accent, but it was what I could find.
Breathing movements. Inspiration. The pressure in the lungs is decreased and the air rushes in. The muscles of the diaphragm contract to make it descend. The rib cage moves upwards and outwards. Expiration. The pressure in lungs is increased and the air is pushed out. The diaphragm becomes dome-shaped, relaxes and moves up. Simultaneously, the rib cage moves down and in.
Questions on ventilation? We measure ventilation, meaning the volume of air moving in and out of the lungs. There are 4 lung volumes that are separate measurements that added together equal the full volume of the lungs. Tidal volume, inspiratory and expiratory reserve, and residual volume. I'm going to take one of these lungs. And we'll illustrate these volumes in it. So tidal volume is the amount of air entering and exiting with each breath. That's in the middle of the lung capacity. And this is also somewhat exaggerated, so something like the lung size expanding from here to here. You'll see tidal volume abbreviated as either TV or V with a little subscript T. If you want to inhale more than that, that's your inspiratory reserve volume. Or IRV. So if you took a deeper breath, that's your inspiratory reserve volume. Now, average tidal volume at rest is 500 milliliters, about a pint. Inspiratory reserve volume is typically about 3 liters, so there's a lot more that your lungs could expand if you need them to. Now, if you wanted to exhale more air past your tidal volume, that's your expiratory reserve volume. or me? On average, this is about 1,100 milliliters, so more than the resting tidal volume, about twice as much. Then there's also some air that you can't get rid of. You can't shrink your lungs any smaller than that. And that's the residual volume. Residual like residue, what's left over. So that's there because your bronchi have the cartilage that prevents them from getting any smaller. And it's a little bit of protection so that the alveoli don't close all the way and their walls touch. So if you've ever gotten the wind knocked out of you, that actually cuts into the residual volume a little bit, which causes the alveoli to collapse, which is why